Never under any circumstances should you ever live with a woman. Okay? I'm telling you this from personal experience, and stay tuned with me through this story because I very rarely, if ever, share legitimate personal stories, okay, about my life. I'm going to say that again. If you are not married as a man, never under any circumstances ever, and I mean ever, live with a woman, because you will see, okay, based on how society and how the world is set up, if things go south, you will see very, very quickly just how powerless you are. Okay, years ago, one of my first girlfriends together, we were living together. Okay, and this was something that I've never shared on this channel. This is something that I've never shared with any of you. And it might be kind of hard for me to open up fully about this, so maybe give me 30 seconds to a minute to work my way into this. Okay, so one of my first girlfriends when we were together, we lived together for probably a year and a half, and based off of, my personal taste in women and based off of, her attitude and some of the things that I noticed, I clearly could see at a very, short time that it was an absolutely crucial mistake that I made in my life. Okay. Now, as a young man at the time in his early 20s, you don't know what you don't know. Okay. So that's what you have to remember is for some of you who you're in this channel and you think, man, how does one get to the point where they have wisdom to share about men, masculinity, life, dating, women, leveling up, making money? Well, it's not only because I came from absolute rock bottom and was completely self-made, but every single issue you have ever ran into or seen with women, I have also seen. Because of that, I can give back at a higher level. Living with this girl, okay, there's certain behavior that I just don't like, and like at night, I'm laying down, I'm sleeping. She would always fall asleep before me. Okay, she'd always fall asleep before me, and just because I have like ADD or whatever, I'm an entrepreneur, it's hard for me to turn my brain off. I'm always thinking about business. I'm thinking about things I want to do. I'm thinking about how I want to develop my life. It's hard for me to turn off. That's how I am. It's a blessing because obviously I can get a hell of a lot of stuff done and I can stay real focused. But it's a curse because, well, everybody can like turn off. I have no off switch. That's what sucks. She'd always fall asleep before me. And as she'd fall asleep before me, as her attitude would progressively get worse and worse through the relationship, meaning like who she was in the beginning was not who she turned out to be. And that typically happens the closer you get to a woman. You start to see that, the spark or the chemistry or what was in the beginning isn't what continues the more you invest as a man. And obviously I was invested because we were living together. I'd lay there at night and I'd look at her when she's sleeping and I'd think to myself, is this really the best I can do? Because if I look at the trajectory of my life right now, if this continues, I'm going to be with a woman who's average or slightly just above average, right? Nothing special. Okay, is this the best I can do with my circumstance? Is this the best I want to settle for in my dating life? Is this the best I want to settle for in a relationship? Is this the best quality of woman I could potentially obtain as a young 20-something-year-old man? I lay down every single night and I'd look at her and I'd think about that. And after a month or two, I came to the conclusion that it was a no. There's no way I would settle, or there is no way I would say, this is it, this is the best I can get. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret, and there's a difference in mindset and mentality, but stay tuned because the story gets whack. There's a difference in mindset between a man who knows deep down on a deep down level that he can generate options and one who can't, okay? Now, I have a Rolodex of past women I've been with that are very attractive. And I don't forget about that. See, that's the thing, is every micro success builds up. If any of you ever struggle with your confidence too, what I'd advise you to do is write down every amazing interaction you've ever had with a beautiful woman. Write them down so you can see, hey, here's proof I am a cool guy or I am confident. That's not something I've done, but what I can tell you is if you're a guy who struggles, it would definitely help. But I would lay at night and I would remember the beautiful women I've been with or the amazing experiences I've shared with girls or the nights when you'd have natural, authentic, organic chemistry with women who are very attractive. And I'd just lay and I'd look and I'd think, there's no way I'm going to settle for this. So one day tried to, and here's the thing is, every single day in my life, no matter what, I would always keep composure, because I believe that that is extremely important as a man. Never in my life have I ever raised my voice at a woman. Never in my life have I ever called a woman a mean name or swore at her. Never in my life have I ever went off on a tangent and text paragraph after paragraph. Never have I ever blown up and lost emotional control. Now, for some of you wondering how to keep attraction in a relationship, that definitely is a big component. When a woman sees a man is completely grounded and can't be moved off center, extremely attractive. Here's another thing though that nobody tells you, especially in the online dating space. That scares the hell out of a woman. It scares the hell out of a woman because you have such a rock solid foundation. She wonders if you're ever going to be fully invested to the point where you will bend or break for her. See, since 99% of guys do that and operate that way, when she sees a guy will never go weak for her or for her sex under any circumstances, it scares them because they start to feel powerless. Okay? This point in the relationship, this woman could probably feel on some level that I was getting this vibe or I was wanting to dissolve things. And not to mention, this is going to sound cocky or this may sound arrogant, but I don't care because at the time, everything in my life was going up. I was lifting heavier weights in the gym than I ever have been before. I was making more money than I ever have been before. I was gaining more, I was having a bigger YouTube channel and a bigger fan base than I ever have before. I was all of a sudden being connected with well-known people, right? And this girl would see this. So I was clearly on my way up, right? I had multiple, influencers with 500,000, 1 million followers that are in my contacts that we're having conversations on the phone. All of a sudden I'm connecting with other either online business owners or entrepreneurs who are doing 7-8 figures per year. Like I was going up. Okay? And it's because I put in a lot of work. Now, what happened when I explained that I want to dissolve the relationship, or I don't think we should see each other, or I think that, and obviously I'm the man and I was making far more money. I was the one majority paying for all of the expenses in the house. I wanted to dissolve the relationship. And when I did that, all hell broke loose. Now, I'm going to cut right here for a second and take a breath so that way I can explain how this went down the right way. Now, this was from many, many years ago, okay, which means I was in Arizona at the time. Like, this was so long ago. Obviously, I'm not going to say who it was. I'm going to leave the name completely anonymous because it doesn't matter who I was with at the time. You just have to understand the moral of this. Like, you have to understand the base of this story. That's the most important thing right now that I'm about to tell you. When I told her I wanted to dissolve the relationship, all hell broke loose on such a level that I have never seen. Okay? We are talking hysterically crying, getting in my face, right? Swearing at me, threatening me, talking about what a piece of shit that I am. Okay? This woman's behavior is erratic. Right, on her knees, dry heaving and hyperventilating, to the point where she took a iPhone cord charger. I had a 10-foot cord charger. She started wrapping it around her neck, started squeezing with it, saying how she wanted to off herself right then and there. This is what I saw with my own two eyes. You can't make this up. So what I start doing is I start freaking out to some degree mentally because I'm like, I've never seen anything like this before. And I start taking every single sharp object out of the house. So I start taking all of the kitchen knives out of the house. My whole goal was I was going to put these in my car and I was going to either drive them to my parents' house or I was going to drive them to a friend's house or I was going to get rid of every single thing that could be harmful. And something happened that I'll never forget. As I'm packing up my car and as I'm packing up majority of anything that could be used that would be harmful, she looked at me, stopped crying for a second, and she said these words. She goes, if you walk out that door, and if you get in your truck right now and you leave, I'm going to call the cops, and I'm going to tell them that you hit me. I'm going to tell them that you hurt me. Now, I want this to sink in because at the time, I can't express the amount of fear that I was in due to the fact of the blatant lie that just came out of this woman's mouth, who supposedly loved me at all times and wanted the best for me. Never in my life would I ever lay a hand on a woman. I would never hit a woman. I would never hurt a woman. I mean, I would never even swear at a woman. I have two sisters that are both younger. I'm obviously a emotionally stable individual where if something were to happen, even if I got cheated on, I don't think I would have that big of an outburst where I would just dissolve the relationship, and I know that I can go back out in the world and generate options. And that doesn't come from me being cocky or arrogant. That just comes from knowing what to do and knowing how to navigate the world and be a man who can go out and get what he wants. So there's no way that a woman would ever move me off center to the point where I would ever lose control of my temper and do something like that. What just came out of her mouth was a blatant lie. And I was so fearful in that moment because I knew that I would be absolutely powerless. And what I mean by that is, let's say, girl walks outside, smacks her head against the brick wall on purpose, says, this happened to me, or he did this. Let's say it takes a frying pan, smacks herself in the face, like you don't know. And she was so confident, she was so calm, she was so composed when she said it. She was dead serious, and it was downright evil. Because never in my life would I ever do that. Never in my life would I ever lay a hand on a woman. And she knew I would never do that, but she just wanted to get at me so bad. It was like she wanted to completely start to pick me apart because I wanted to dissolve the relationship. And there was two things I could have done in that moment. There was an option A and there was an option B, and I was 100% in fight or flight mode. Option A was submit to her request, meaning don't walk out that door. Don't go and drive all the kitchen utensils, the knives, everything out of the house, and stay there and try to verbally work it out so that way I'm safe. That's option one. Option one would be submit to her frame. Now, growing up, my dad always taught me one thing. He always said, if anything ever happens to you legally, he said, never, under any circumstances, talk or give any information until you have your dad and your attorney there. That's what I was told my whole life. So I thought to myself, you know what? Obviously, I haven't done anything. Obviously, this is my home, apartment I'm paying for. Obviously, majority of all of the things in here are mine. And obviously, I have every right to dissolve a relationship if I view that it doesn't suit me. Option A would have been easier. Option A would have been easy to say, you know what, she does have the power right now because I don't know what could happen if she did that. But I told myself, fuck that. I'm going to take a risk. And I'm going to leave anyways. And I looked at her and I said, if that's what you feel that you need to do it then. Do it. I'm out. Walk to my truck. Girl runs after me. Clings on to my right leg. Is holding me. Will not let me get in my pickup. This went on for minutes. Until she finally let go. I drove out of the house. I can't remember where I went. I can't remember if I went to my friends or what I did. And I'm not going to lie, when I was in my truck, I was very scared. I was actually crying, right? I've never seen anything like this. I've never had my heart pump so fast. I've never had anybody threaten me in that manner. And it's so much different when a woman threatens you compared to when a man threatens you, because you're powerless. You're powerless from a physical and from a mental standpoint. All you can say is words, right, to a woman. All you can say is words. There's a couple options with your words. You can blow up and you can say, well, get screwed or blah, blah, blah. Or, you can also keep composure. But regardless, all you have is your verbals. Verbal jujitsu, I like to call it. That's all you got. If a man threatens you, physical confrontation could escalate. But there's a high chance, like if physical confrontation escalates, you're flipping a coin, there's a chance you might win. And there's also a chance if there's physical confrontation with a man, nothing might happen afterwards. Legally, nothing, like he might walk away and you might walk away and shake it off. That happens. But with a woman, you're absolutely powerless. You can't fight back and you can't do anything. So here I am being psychologically manipulated. I broke down and I started crying. And I was crying extremely, I was sobbing, and I called my dad and I didn't know what to do. And I drove around for a while, and eventually I had to go back to my place that's where I lived, and that's where my stuff is, and that's where my phone is, and that's where, everything that I own is at. That's where my coffee maker is, extremely important. Go back, and, then all of a sudden it's a reverse shift where it's, I'm sorry I did that. I acted out of character. I want you back. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? I love you. I could never lose you. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? I played into that frame. And I wanted to smooth things over, but while I was smoothing things over, I had to think of a very calculated way over the course of weeks to dissolve this to where I would be a free man. And eventually I did get out, and eventually it was very difficult to get out, but I did manage to do it. But the moral of the story is never under any circumstances ever live with a woman unless you are married. And even if you're married, you're taking a big risk, especially if your woman has had multiple partners. Okay? At the time, I was dating a woman who had multiple partners. I also had multiple partners. Okay? I've probably not done things the best in my life. And that's obviously why I can even make a YouTube channel and talk like this for 16 minutes in a row by myself without any dialogue or anybody to talk with me to, because I've been through stuff. Okay? I've been through stuff. I've done real life things. I've seen how the real world works. And I'm telling you that the woman that you think will have your back, if stuff doesn't operate in her favor, the person who you think loves you the most can flip a switch and be the polar opposite within 24 hours or even less. And here's why. What you have to remember is this. Everybody, and I mean everybody, men or women, on a deep down level, are all only as faithful as their options. And not only are they only as faithful as their options, what I can tell you is this, is everybody, 99% of the time, will only act in their best interest. They will not act in the interest of the whole. They will not act in the interest of both parties. They will act in the best interest of them. And nobody wants to be at the lower hand or the lower value in an interaction or in the relationship, especially women. Women today are not used to getting dumped. Women today are not used to having a man who doesn't want to commit. Women today, 100%, are not used to ever being at the disadvantage in the relationship to the point where they don't have the full control if there is a monogamous commitment from the man or not. They are not used to that. They cannot take rejection. They can't do it because it's an emotion or it's a feeling they have never had to experience before. Okay, men, especially in their teens and 20s, have to experience that. They know what that's like. And it's because as a man, your value increases in age as your income and status and intellect and wisdom goes up. Okay? When you're young, you don't have any of that, which means you're not attractive, which means you don't have any leverage. As a man with age, you have leverage. Okay, this is what the world doesn't want to tell you, and this is also what your parents don't tell you, is that as a man with age, you have leverage in relationships, especially intimate relationships with women. So women don't want to be at that disadvantage, and women don't want to have that full control over that commitment if that happens or not, and they're not used to not having it. Okay, every girl has so many options and so many guys ready and willing to commit to them. The second you don't want to, it places you at such a higher value compared to majority of the population that just even having the mindset, right? You can have the same income, the same finances, the same height, but just having the mindset that I'm not going to settle, like, already puts you at a step above. So never under any circumstances live with a woman. I'm telling you this from personal experience. I'm telling you this as a guy who has made money, and as a guy who's had his own home, and as a guy who has been with women and seen real experiences. You can't do it because there's too much to lose, especially if you have something going for yourself. I hope this video served you. I hope you understand why I'm making this. Okay, obviously I'm going to leave the woman's name blank. This was from a lot of years ago, and yeah.